We should be endorsed for hats and not one specific brand. It should just be for like just all hats in general. We're just hat guys.
Yeah.
All the hats. All the hats. Send them our way.
Dude, did you ever see that movie, Fear of a Black Hat? It's like a mockumentary about a group named NWH, kind of like NWA,
Okay.
Or
but they always wear
NWO.
hats. Exactly, but they always wear hats, and like the joke is that like they have all these different kind of hats, and the one guy's like, "Oh, I didn't bring our hats," and he's like, "You didn't bring our hats," and he's like, "No," he's like, "Well, then we're without hats." The whole point is that we're with hats. So stupid, but anyways, welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and get endorsed by hats. I'm your host. You're just a tracer.
I did not change my name, Jose Ramos.
Yeah, you are.
And I'm J for Gendetta.
Vendetta, I like it. So in this week's episode, we're going to talk about comic books that were that were adapted to movies, but specifically ones that were not superhero ones. So usually these ones are ones that our general audience probably may not know that were adapted. So we're going to kind of tackle some of those. But first, we're going to hit them with the current event.
I was reading that, as you guys know, they're working on a new Pennywise series, and I think they're actually pretty far into development of it. Well, during the interview or questioning with Bill Skarsgård, he pretty much said that he is not involved in this series, meaning he's probably not going to be Pennywise, possible recast for the role. What do you guys think?
It's supposed to be a prequel anyway. It's supposed to be like, the origin story. So maybe we don't get Pennywise at all. Maybe we get just different iterations of this cosmic alien creature, since it does change and morph into other things.
If you go off of the made for television movie, he was a clown since way back in the day, right? Like when they had like the carnival and all that stuff with the early town. But yeah, I'm imagining they're gonna have. I guess it really depends, when did he land on Earth? I know I read the book a long time ago and I don't remember because clowns probably didn't exist at the time that he came. So he could be different versions of that. But then are we seeing that civilization of mankind? Like I'm assuming they're gonna go 40s, like 1940s, maybe. Like I don't think they're gonna go primitive caveman,
Oh yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, he's not in talks yet, but he easily can be, right? Because it's like I like the actor a lot. I don't see him popping up on a lot of stuff, so it doesn't necessarily seem like he's getting super busy right now. So I can see them doing, I'm definitely interested in the series. I'll put it that way. I'm very interested.
Yeah, like story-wise, I can see it fitting, like George mentioned. This is a shape-shifting being and all of that. So they can literally put anyone in there and be like, that's what he looked like at the time. Although we did see in the newer It movies, they have the old photos there, and you see him in there, and he's not in his clown makeup. And the way it is, it's like a different form of it. So I can see it working like story-wise, but I mean, I was kind of disappointed just because I feel there's potential with him and that character, and it would have been good to see him play the character kind of out of the makeup and just kind of evolve into the version that we saw at the time. But I mean, it might happen. I'm still gonna give the series a try. I don't think it affects it again, story wise.
Have they announced when it's gonna be coming out at all? When it's expected?
I don't think so. At least I haven't seen it.
Probably just really early phases, then, huh? Okay, I'll watch it. I'll add it to the queue, and we can do a hit it or
Yeah,
quit it
right.
on
Yeah.
Look out for that extra content. So, okay, you guys want to dig into these?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let me ask you guys, since you guys are big comic book fans of this, do you guys mainly stick to superheroes? Do you guys kind of get out of your traditional superhero ones?
I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the show, but like I used to work at a comic book shop for a good like 5 some odd years. And so obviously dream job for anyone who's comic books. And for me, it's always been good writer, good artist. I don't actually even care what the genre is. As long as I got a great creative team behind it, I'm pretty much going to be sold at that point. So like some of my favorite comic books are actually not even superhero related whatsoever. Like there's a writer called Brian K. Vaughan, did the Why the Last Man series. To me, possibly one of the best books I've ever read, and I've read it probably like 3-4 times. It's like 10 volumes worth of books that I just love going through. No superheroes whatsoever. Too bad the show couldn't work out.
Generally, I would say it's been like mostly superheroes, mainly on a time basis. Just it's the same reason why I generally stick to more DC is I only have so much time to read and there's so much content, so many comic books. It's like I can't touch them all at all. So
Jokes and jokes.
yeah. So I tend to just stick with that. I have dabbled, especially over the last year, here and there in some horror genre comics that have nothing to do with superheroes because I love horror and I like comics. So I'm like, mix those together. Let's do it. But so far I haven't read anything that it's like blown my mind and it's like, oh my God, this is one of the best things I've read. But that's been the closest thing so far from venturing out of your regular mainstay superheroes.
Yeah, I read Lock and Key. So I read a few of them. Lock and Key I read, which is the writer Joe Hill.
Yeah,
Joe
the son
Hill,
of
yeah.
Stephen King.
Stephen King's son, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's well written. I really liked it. I was excited for the show when it came out. The show I didn't like. It's very kid oriented, and the comic books are not. It goes a lot darker than that. And there's certain things that they kind of tackled very vaguely and surface level in the show, but they went super deep on it in the comic book. And so some stuff I guess doesn't translate as well because they figured because the main characters are kids and it's kind of fantastical in a certain way. They thought, they made a good decision, I guess, because the show seems to be pretty successful for Netflix. But just for me, the viewer, it's like I like dark, gritty. I like real. I like it when they tackle real problems.
It's funny you mentioned that because Joe Hill actually he partnered with DC and he has his own little
Yep.
like horror wing and collection. That's been a lot of the stuff that I've been reading towards the horror one that it's not connected to the mainstay DC comics is the Joe Hill collection and he has I don't know something I want to say it's more than 7 different like series like going on.
You guys ready to jump into these movies?
Let's do it.
So starting off, this is a movie that first of all, I feel it's an under the radar movie to begin with, but then a lot of people that I've talked to didn't even realize that this was based off of a graphic novel, and it was actually based off of a Max Allan Collins graphic novel.
Let me guess real quick. Superman. Was it Superman?
How did you know? You see, you saw my script, didn't you? You saw my script. Yeah, but this was published under Vertigo in '98, and it's Road to Perdition with in the movie starred good old Tom Hanks,
who is very well. Like he has a wide spectrum of his acting ability. Well, that's what we say here.
Exactly. Now, this movie. What are you guys' thoughts on Road to Perdition? Have you seen it? What do you think? Did you like it?
I liked it, man. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it. It's good. Tom Hanks crushed it, I remember, but it has been a while since I've seen it. I had no idea it was based off a comic book. That really surprised me. Like I don't recall there being elements to make it feel like why it was a comic book, I guess. So is it more of just like adult content, right? Is that I'm assuming how the comic book was?
The Vertigo line for DC is their pretty much like their indie imprint, and it allows them to do more mature things that they wouldn't do under their superhero line. So things like the Sandman would go under Vertigo. Even like Constantine and Swamp Thing sometimes would dabble in that area. Yeah. So this was a perfect area for people to just tell a story.
Lucifer too?
Huh? Yeah, Lucifer was also Vertigo, because that came from the Sandman series.
Yeah. Nice. I like Sandman. I like I like the show too. I know that they renewed it for the second season, but it sounds like that's gonna be it. Just random.
It's an expensive series, so they needed a high level of viewership. Like they even the creator came out and it was like basically this costs a lot. We need you guys to keep watching if we're going to get this renewed. I liked Road to Perdition. It doesn't have, if you think of comic books as your stereotypical comic book, especially the way the general audience tends to look at them, it doesn't fit that mold. But again, in this and some of the other movies that we'll talk about here, it's just to show you the range of what comic books cover. Just like books cover all different genres, this just does it with images in a certain way. But the content can get very adult, very serious, and cover all different things. But I really enjoyed Road to Perdition. It's actually one of my favorite Tom Hanks, not the favorite, but one of my favorite Tom Hanks roles. Here's a role where you got to see Tom Hanks. Usually he gives off that everyday guy. Like he's just one of the guys. We're gonna hang out. He's cool. But here he was a badass. You don't see badass Tom Hanks too much, and that's one of the things I really liked with that role. If you're listening, Chuck, different role for Tom Hanks. Badass.
Suck it, MODOK.
Yeah. What about you, George? What are your thoughts?
I'm a Tom Hanks fan. I think that's clear. If anyone's read the comments for our episodes, every time Tom Hanks is brought up and someone knocks him down, I got to be there to defend him. And
There's only one. There's only one person that ever knocks him.
Well, I wasn't going to say any names since you guys already took care of it. But yeah, no, I was so impressed with this one because this is one of those kind of things. Was like when you saw like Tom Cruise in Collateral, you know, it kind of had that level where like, granted, Tom Hanks isn't being a bad guy, but he's definitely doing questionable things, you know, and it's just like he's like the American sweetheart. You don't imagine him doing it like killing for a price, you know, because the man told him so, you know, and but at the same time, we still have that juxtaposed to his family life where like he's still a good dad and a good husband, you know, so we're getting typical Tom Hanks, but doing some naughty things. You know,
like, come on, Hanks, put down the Tommy gun, go find it for a piano.
Well, I think it's funny is Dan brought up the whole Superman thing, and Superman is in this movie because Tyler Hoechlin, who is very young in this, plays Dick's son, and now he's Superman.
There you go.
Which is funny because I just rewatched Road to Perdition again. I hadn't seen it in a long time, so I rewatched it like a month ago, and I'm there and I'm like, this kid, where's this kid from? He looks so familiar. And it was bugging me the whole movie until I looked at the picture because I have been watching, you know, Superman and Lois, the new series. And I was like, that's it. I knew those eyebrows.
Yeah.
The eyebrows. It's all
it was
it's
the
true.
Eyebrows.
Yeah, he has freaking eyebrows. No, that whole movie has a huge like a star-studded cast. Like, a young Daniel Craig and Jude Law. I think that's one of the last movies that Paul Newman did, right?
Yeah.
I can't think of too many movies he did before or after within that time period.
No, because I think he passed around near that. I think he did.
Yeah.
It was so weird seeing Daniel Craig in that role because for years now we've seen the 007 series, we've seen Knives Out where he plays this like cool, collective, smart character. And then in this movie, he's just a sniveling coward. Yeah. And it was just so different from like what we've been seeing him for years.
Which shows a nice range, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you see that, which gives you more appreciation for what Daniel Craig's doing now because you kind of see what he did as, you know, earlier in his career. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely need to do a rewatch of that one. It's been a while.
Do it. Hey, Dan, do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Do
it. Any other thoughts on Road to Perdition?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
Another one that a lot of people also don't know that this came from a graphic novel is Snowpiercer. Both the movie and the show. It's actually from a French writer called, and I'm probably going to butcher her name, Jacques Lob. And this was back in like 82 is when it did.
What's the French name by chance? No, of the book.
Oh, I don't Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer.
I just want to see if you had it written down. It's like you want to butcher something, butcher the name because that's gonna be tough.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like Le Transpersonnage.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's basically what I said in just less words.
I like Snowpiercer. That sounds better.
Snowpiercer.
Yeah,
Snowpiercer.
But it actually went for a while. It was like 4 different volumes. I think it ran between the 82 and the last one released, I think somewhere around like 2014, 15, close to around where the movie like came out.
Yeah.
And I think they've since re-released within the US after the movie came out, I think with the popularity of it. But love Snowpiercer. What are you guys' thoughts on it?
I loved it, man. I thought it was solid. It was one of those ones that like my brother had told me about it. I didn't really know anything about it. It seemed kind of independent, I guess, or something, or I guess lower. It wasn't a big commercial released movie, at least I should say. It was, and when I saw it, and what I thought it was just an action movie. I didn't know it was like really much deeper than that. And then once you start getting the different classes separated on the bus, I mean, on the train, it really kind of changed and it became a lot more complicated than I thought in a very positive way. And it's directed well, it's acted well, but I really like the writing in it.
Honestly a nice, like almost like retelling of like Soylent Green. You know, it's one of those things where like you easily could have said this is an adaptation of that while still being its own thing. And
Yeah.
that shows the, like, I think a best level of creativity, as opposed to these days there's always like, we're just going to do a remake of this thing, and, you know, or a reboot. It's like, no, you can tell that story but tell it differently, and they did that. I felt,
Yeah.
you know, there's certain scenes in there, especially like at the end when you see what's behind the panels, it's like, oh snap, there's children in there.
I think one of the things I like, besides the performances, you have some strong performances in there. You know, Chris Evans was great in it. Uh, it felt like a video game. Like you kept going to the next level. And it was like, all right, I beat this level, going to this level, now going to the final boss and stuff. And as a gamer, like I really appreciated that aspect of it. Yeah, oh, so good. I haven't watched the series. I don't know if you guys have seen the series.
Okay.
I haven't read the book. So I don't know how much of the graphic novels the movie covers. I'm sure maybe it's just one volume. Maybe the TV series covers more of it and you get more of the story. I know one of the volumes that's out there is a prequel also. Maybe the series covers that, but have you guys had a chance to check out the series?
I have not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think for
want
me,
to.
I want to see it because there's good talent in there, but at the same time, like I had read the small portion of the book that the movie was based off of, and watching the movie, I felt like it's so self-contained. I didn't need more, you know, and I didn't need a sequel to it. I didn't need to see what happened beforehand. I got all the information I needed out of that, you know.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah,
that's how it was for me. So I don't feel the need to watch the series as of yet.
I feel the same way you do on that. Like it's so self-contained, and I like watching projects where it doesn't necessarily have to tell me everything. Like I don't need to know the details of every single thing. And anytime they tend to have a hit, they always want to do a sequel, and then they always want to do a prequel. And it's like I
Yeah.
don't need to get that. If it's really good and a movie like with Snowpiercer, it's solid. It didn't necessarily warrant. I don't need to get more out of this. Like I'm good. I got the message that you gave. I don't see how much more it could do more world building, um, because they gave us so much in the first one. It's opposite of what they did with John Wick. You know how like with the John Wick franchise, you gave us the first one, and the first one's good, but it kept getting better and better because they kept adding more to the mythology and growing it. Snowpiercer, you kind of put us right in the middle of it, and you saw the big moments of it. So how else are you going to stretch it further? Now it feels like you're just kind of cramming more things for a sequel. I could be completely wrong. I don't know, but again, because I haven't seen the series or read the graphic novels, but I'm good. I'm good with the movie.
Yeah, and normally I agree with that sentiment then. The only thing that makes this a little different for me is the fact that it's not they created this movie and it was successful, so now they're trying to expand it like
Yeah.
forcefully.
Hmm.
The content is there.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
already. So it's like
Yeah.
this is just a piece of the content. That
Yeah.
makes me a little less wary. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm a little curious about the series. Um, I don't Probably the reason I haven't started is like you guys said, is I was satisfied with the movie, but there is still a slight curiosity of like, what else is there? So maybe at some point I'll start it off. Next one, I kind of cheated a little bit on this. This isn't technically a comic or graphic novel. This is actually based off of a manga series back from 1996. And I know I've heard people yell at other people for putting comics and manga in the same like breath. So I will
Wait,
say
wait.
we cheated on this
What?
one.
Why is that? I want to ask you guys so that way our audience can listen. Why do
Well,
they need to be separated so
well,
much?
I don't read manga. Maybe George can give a better explanation on why it's like, no, they're not the same.
It's semantics, honestly. But it's like the same argument with like animation and anime. The anime are not cartoons, they're anime. It's like anime means
Uh,
animation or cartoons.
Yeah.
Manga
Yeah.
just means comic books. It's a matter of translation, and
Yeah.
people just don't want to accept translation. That's all it is, you know. And they feel
Like
like they're being,
Snowpiercer.
yeah. I think they feel like they're being more genuine to the culture and the people by saying manga as opposed to comic book. And because they're read differently, so like a manga you'll read this way, while a comic book you read this way,
Yeah.
it's stuff like that. I will admit mangas, their storytelling is generally better than American or just comic books around the world in general. Like the artist is generally an artist and a writer, one person. Most of the time it can be a team or teams and stuff like that, but most of the time, so like for instance, Junji Ito is a very prolific horror manga artist and writer. That's pretty much what he does, but like his art is so detailed and his writing is so like visceral that there's a certain craft to how he conducts every page, so it prepares you to be scared when you turn that to the next one, as opposed to American comic books. They don't generally work that same way. It's just really about the panel structure and having like a splash page, and it's more about being poppy than it is to tell a story.
So it sounds like it's a pretentious thing.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah, okay.
It's all comic books, man. I think this is totally fine that you put this on here.
Yeah. With that being said, I would like those listening to pay attention to how smoothly George said that writer's name and how unsmoothly I am going to say the names of these two writers, because they deserve the respect to have their names said, even though I'm probably going to butcher
even
it.
Though it's butchered.
But yeah, this had like a run from 96 and 98, and it was Nobuaki Minagishi and Garen Tsuchiya.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Something like that.
Something along that.
But these were the writers of manga series that actually brought us, led to bringing us a really excellent Oldboy movie that was then followed up by a not so excellent American version of the Oldboy movie. We can discuss both. So George started us off on this one.
That's what Dan's nod of like, do we have to discuss both? Do we? We only have enough time for one, so let's talk about the good one. So,
exactly.
I thought the good one is a Korean movie based off of a Japanese book. I always find that interesting when you got certain Asian cultures that generally don't mesh with each other, taken from one another. I think that's really cool. We've always talked about in the past, Korean film is just amazing. This is a dirty film, and not just because of the ending, but just because of everything that this guy has to go through and how it's shot. I don't feel clean when I watch this movie. I feel grimy and tired when I watch it, but it's good. Like I think that's what you're supposed to feel. You're not always supposed to feel happy and go lucky when you watch a movie, and this movie just makes me feel those things when I go through this man's journey.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Overall, with like a lot of the Korean movies that I've seen or Korean shows that I've seen, is there's a discomfort as a viewer, usually with the content, and it's a good discomfort, because there's an expectation when it comes to like American films. Generally, I can't say all of them, but most of the movies you're gonna follow a certain pattern. Your discomfort might be temporary because they're going to give you relief at the end. So you're willing to deal with that discomfort. But with the Korean film, it's like, you don't know if you're going to get that relief. So that like adds to the anxiety of the uncomfortness of watching it. So like, you kind of feel more involved in what the characters are feeling in it. You're more invested because it's like, crap, I might not get that happy ending like with this. And then personally, I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Dan, what are your thoughts on Old Boy or Old Boys?
Yeah, like what you're saying with the Korean film, I expect them not to have happy endings, and usually most of the time they don't. They always end up, and I love that because it's so realistic. Because if you have characters in the situation, these predicaments, it's not going to end like a happy fairy tale. And American film and cinema, most of them, like you said, they tend to, because they worry too much about what the audience is feeling versus what the story and what's called for the character, if that makes sense. Yeah. Old Boy, even just the title, like you said, George, about it feeling grimy, even just Old Boy, that title alone kind of gives you an idea about what this movie is. Like, it is
contradiction
grimy
within the title.
Correct. It is. And so the movie itself is just so phenomenal. Like you said, it's very well shot, it's very well acted. The story, I like the pacing of the movie. The American version doesn't even exist in my mind. Like I tried giving it like 20 minutes, I think, and I like Josh Brolin, but like it's not his fault. It's just the American again trying to do Korean movies, and it's like you just can't. Like Korean movies are just so good as they are. Stop trying to adapt them and just show us those Korean movies. They did such a masterful job doing it. Otherwise, it feels like you're just like a copycat. And Oldboy felt like that while taking away the true dirtiness of it. You know what I mean? So Oldboy's phenomenal. I don't think I knew that it was a comic book either. I think I heard that somewhere, but like I never read it. I never read the graphic novel or anything like that. I'm just so in love with the movie. I try to watch it once every like 6 years, so that way I don't like watch it too much. I like kind of pacing it out, but then I love going back to it, man. It's a great film.
Yeah, it's also like you talk about like how the American one is so bad. It's like how do you improve upon one of the best shots in cinema? That hallway scene is so good, and that's why it's like I feel tired. It's like I felt the way you felt like going through that hallway of trying to fight all those dudes.
Yeah, he's just tired.
The Brolin version just doesn't compare, and that's directing and cinematography.
Yeah,
they probably would have been better if they just copied it all together and just had an American version of the exact same shot. Sure, we'd be like, oh, they copied them, but at least you're copying perfection.
Yeah. And the Americans that didn't watch the Korean version will be new to them.
Yeah.
So you tricked 30% of the people that watched it.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and I agree with like everything you guys said right there. The original is it's so good and it's so impactful. And it's like maybe if that original didn't exist, the American version might not be so bad. It'd be kind of like, In-N-Out is a good burger. But until you have a gourmet burger, then it's like, I don't want In-N-Out like anymore. So if that gourmet burger didn't exist, then In-N-Out is great. So that's pretty much what this is. Even with a good cast like Brolin and Elizabeth Olsen, two people that I really enjoy as actors, but certain things just should not be touched because you're already at pinnacle. So
yeah, well said.
All right, perfect. So the next one, it was a comic book series written by Lowell Cunningham. And this was back in 1990. This was created, and originally it was under Aircell Comics, but then that got bought off by another company called Malibu Comics, and then that got taken in by Marvel. So now it's under Marvel, and it is Men in Black, the series. This is one. Honestly, me personally, I did not know it was a comic. When I watched the movie and enjoyed that stuff, it wasn't until I had done some research that I found out that this was a comic. So we'll start with you on this one, George.
I did know it was a comic book, and we're at the point of our episode now where I'm starting to question the superhero-ness of some of these movies. Okay. I think this is a superhero movie, personally. Here's why. How does this differ from an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
You could argue that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not necessarily really a superhero one unless they're dealing with superheroes that are involved in their storyline, right? That's the only way I would say it.
But like they're dealing with, for them, like we say superheroes, but for their world, they're just looking at super powered beings or alien beings. Like Thor is an alien to them. You know what I mean? They don't see him necessarily as a superhero. So the aliens that are in Men in Black, some of them have powers. They have powerful guns. These guns are otherworldly. There's a supernatural aspect to it, So I just say it teeters. It teeters on superhero level of things. Besides that, though, this was one of those things where I felt like comic book was good. It was decent. It's very schlocky. And so is the movie. I think the movie actually surpasses the comic book. That doesn't always happen. This is one of those cases where I think that this movie, I can still go back to it. It visually looks entertaining. It's Will Smith, pre-slap is still great. He's still I have to bring it up. There was a situation that happened last night where it got talked about a lot. But yeah, that this was Will Smith in his prime, running his butt off and just being hilarious and just owning it, and Tommy Lee Jones,
Yeah.
always a good actor, but like I didn't know he could be funny yet until this movie.
I like him, man. The director is the one that did M's Family. I like Men in Black. I'll go back to it sometimes and watch it. It's done really well. Vincent D'Onofrio is the bug guy, like
Yeah.
so creepy.
Mhm.
The way he does it, like he's good, man. Like the movie's done, like good. Like I like it. I like origin stories that they do it right. The way that they bring in Will Smith, and he shoots the little girl. Remember, like during the training thing, the little panel thing, and he says, no little girl's gonna be walking with a trigonometry book, and he saved all the aliens, and like that's ultimately what saved them, and he drags like the loud table and everything. Like I liked it. I like Men in Black. I did know it was a comic book because when I used to be a comic book reader way back in the day, I would see the comic books, but I noticed them after the movie came out though. That's when I started paying attention to it more. So I saw it. I never read it, but the Men in Black franchise was good. Part 1 was, in my opinion, still the best. Part 2 is pretty good. And then it just kind of, 3, I was like, 4 doesn't even exist.
and
Oh, four.
and I'll correct what I said. I knew it was a comic book. I didn't know it was based off a comic. I thought they came out after the movie. They like to like do the supplemental content.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. I didn't know that this existed way before the movie, and then they did it off of that. But without repeating what you guys said, I definitely enjoyed the movie. This was Blockbuster Will. This was during Blockbuster Will time frame where he was just releasing bangers almost on a yearly basis, where it was like hit after hit. So I definitely enjoy it. I can see why they wanted to do so many more sequels, where they probably should have stopped after the second one. But every once in a while, this is one of the Will Smith movies that I do go back and check out again, and it still makes me laugh.
I know that they always had the rumor of the Men in Black teaming up with 22 Jump Street. I'm
Yeah.
so glad they didn't do
That
that.
came very close.
I did not want that. I did not want that. You can add that for more reasons about my not loving endorsement of Channing Tatum. I did not want to see that. It just doesn't make sense. It's like I just didn't see a necessary like, yeah, you just have these cops that are going undercover for high school kids. What does it have anything to do with aliens? Like it just is such a forced
I think
franchise
what
team
happens
up.
is they go undercover to some high school, right? And then they end up finding out that it's not just a drug buster going through, but these drugs are being brought in by extraterrestrials.
Faculty.
And in comes,
It's like the movie
comes the Men in Black.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think it could work.
And they get recruited in. They get recruited in.
Yeah.
We are not selling this to Hollywood. We don't need this to happen. We don't need this. It will not work.
I'm pro Channing Tatum, so I don't care, man. He can stay. I don't.
It's out there, Dan. Dan. Men in Black meets 21 Jump Street meets the Faculty. Put them together. We got it.
Yeah, we get
as long as you get Usher in here. Yeah, get Usher
Elijah
in there.
Wood is the teacher who survived the first Faculty situation.
There you go.
All right. Which brings in the movie Cooties because he's already played a teacher before. But come on, there's layers. I think we got it. They just need us to write it. If we write this, it can work.
The alien is selling the drugs in the school with Josh Hartnett, which explains why he has the stupid hair thing because he's not human.
Yeah, he doesn't have eyes because only humans have eyes.
That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. I see it.
Nailed it. Hey, Paulus.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Speak to our agents.
Now onto our final main one, and then we'll get into some honorable mentions in there. This is based off of a James O'Barr comic they released on their Caliber Comics back in 1989. And it's The Crow. Very good movie for its time, which actually I rewatched, I want to say like a month ago, and it still partially holds up, some parts, but it's a memorable movie, mainly remembered for the tragedy behind it in it, but it is also a lot better than the one that came after it, even
with
the circumstances. I stopped paying attention after the second one. I blocked that out, any crows after that. But we'll start with you on this one, Dan.
Yeah, so The Crow, I remember liking it a lot when I was younger. And it was one of those ones that kind of reminded me like a little bit like how Donnie Darko is. We kind of like this cult following. It had like a very specific style, very edgy, kind of very emo. They sell it at Hot Topic, like those kind of things. I liked it. I rewatched it about I want to say about 6 months ago. It didn't hold up as much as I thought. It's not bad. It's not a bad movie. There's still some lot of good things to it, but there's some things that are just really cheesy to me. And it's like, oh, this doesn't hold up. Dang, that doesn't hold up. A little disappointing in that factor. This is one that I would argue is this one considered a superhero just because he has powers, and we kind of see, there's a it goes beyond kind of a supernatural element to it.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I would say for that. But I haven't. This is one that even though they've done sequels and everything, I think this one warrants a new adaptation. Like I want to see a new version of The Crow and for them to do
Yeah.
it right. Because I think that the source material is solid. There's a very good mythology and lore behind the Crow. You have a very good, even just the look of him, the aesthetic look of the Crow is awesome. I want to see a very, very good version of this. So I want to see that.
And there's still, a following for it because the
Oh, yeah.
comics kept releasing for years after under like 5, 6 different publishers. They just kept releasing on it. But George, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dan said. He's a supernatural superhero. It's how we sold him in the store, so I gotta stick to that. But Crow's amazing. The Crow's always been one of those movies and characters where I questioned if Brandon Lee had passed away, would it still be as revered as it is? You know what I mean? It's almost because it's just a huge stretch. It's almost like Heath Ledger with the Joker. Granted, Heath Ledger killed it as a Joker, still one of my favorite Jokers, but you always gonna wonder, it's like they didn't pass. Would we still celebrate it as much?
Would he have won the Oscar? I would say
Yeah.
no. He would not have won the
You know what I
Oscar.
mean?
Yeah, I would say no for that. I think the movie will still be revered, the Dark Knight, but I don't think he would
Sure,
have won
yeah,
the
the Dark
Oscar.
Knight, yeah. But I mean, like, just we
Does.
give it so much accolade because of everything that happened afterwards.
Yeah.
And I always felt like Brandon Lee wasn't as celebrated before that. He did some movies that were okay, but no one looked at him like that the way they looked at his dad. But then The Crow happened and he passed, and then it's like, oh, he's the man. Everything he does is great.
He became
It's
a
like,
symbol.
yeah. But I still like The Crow. It's cheesy 90s action for me, like dark, cheesy 90s action. So I still think it's great. Jose, you're right. It's still a huge popular IP, honestly. Sideshow Collectibles, which makes pop culture statues, they just released a statue for him, like I think a couple months ago, and the thing is nearly sold out. So there's still a craving for this character. I think what's great about the Crow, it's similar to being like a Ghost Rider, a Spawn, or a Green Lantern, is that anyone can be this character. This is one of those characters where it doesn't necessarily have to be a set person. Anyone could be it. You want your lady, your guy, your black, your white. Everyone can be him. So I think that's really cool of a character that they're letting just hang in the wind.
You know who's been keeping it alive? Sting, for all you wrestling
Yeah,
fans out
that's
there.
the first thing I thought about too. Yeah.
NWO, new world order.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it is, like I said, I still enjoyed it. I can see some of it that does not hold up, especially if someone who wasn't exposed to it before. There is a little bit that nostalgia aspect to it.
Yeah.
And it is that over the top campy characters, especially like with the villains and even him sometimes, kind of like you get with movies like Demolition Man. Not saying it's on the same level of Demolition Man, but it's that campy, over the top, very cartoonishly acted like characters. That's a staple of that time, and you kind of get a little bit of that here, which is like, it's not a movie you're going to be watching every year, but a long time passes, it's good to like touch base again with it, check it out, like, oh, all right, I remember those days, and then kind of just move on.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's primed to get a reboot of some sort. Like even if they did as like a series, like a show that maybe only had like 8 episodes per season, you kind of take a season by season. I think you can really tackle that because The Crow, I think, is worthy to have a great project. You know what I mean? Like they should have a great film or a great mini series or something behind it. I think it needs that because even like you said with Demolition Man, it is kind of that campiness, but the difference is that Demolition Man, you still have the charisma of Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes. You know what I mean? Like you still had really good actors. This one's lacking that. That's just a little bit of the difference. It doesn't, and it's just a darker tone.
Yeah.
It's not as like campy and like bubbly the way that Demolition Man was.
Honestly, the comic book isn't campy at all. It's just dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll throw this question out, you guys. With right now, especially in Hollywood, everything is so reboot and requel happy with like everything. They want to bring everything back. What do you guys think they haven't tried to touch and bring this one back? I haven't even heard whispers out there of the possibility of it coming back.
Oh, well, there has been actually.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa was tapped for a while.
That's what I was gonna say.
To be the Crow. Like for I want to say for almost 10 years now.
I actually thought it was gonna happen, right? There was a couple of moments where I thought it was legit gonna like go into production, and I don't know what happened.
I think two things happened. One, the Crow series as a whole has been a failure. Besides the first one, everything after has never been done good. The only thing that came close was the TV series, which had Mark Dacascos in it, and it was okay. That was better than some of the sequels. But then Jason Momoa's career, when he was tied onto it, also wasn't looking that good at first. Like I think he did the Conan movie and that tanked, and they were like, we don't know if we want to keep him on here. But I know he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So he's been climbing that ladder and trying to prove himself still, which I think he pretty much has. You know,
that it would be a more intimidating Crow if Jason Momoa like gets the Crow.
Yeah, I'd say so.
They would not be laughing in his face.
No.
Now he's gonna do Lobo though. I think he's great for Lobo, man.
Yeah, I think Dan's right though. A TV series would be perfect for this for this franchise, especially like if they treat it like American Horror Story. Every season's just a different Crow.
Yep. Exactly. That's how you can kind of change it. You can keep it fresh. You can kind of do it in like different periods. You kind of change a little bit of the timing. It always feels fresh. Keep it about six episodes is the sweet spot. If you want to go to 8, do 8. Don't do anything beyond that.
Yeah. HBO, pick this up.
HBO Max.
That's
where
the
your
channel
writers.
for it. That's
where your writers.
Look at us. We just dropping gold here. We had 21 Men in Black, and now we have this one. All right, so we've made it through our list. Now we just get an opportunity if there's any honorable mentions that everyone wants to mention. I have one myself. I know George, you had a couple. So we'll start with you, George.
I actually got visual examples. So I think I've stated before my favorite director or one of is Darren Aronofsky. He did Noah, which is a decently hefty graphic novel, but he also did The Fountain. I don't know if you can see that.
Nice.
But yeah, there we go. I think it's great that he dabbles into the graphic novel aspect first to kind of proof of concept. And then like a year or two later, he makes the movie.
You could totally tell he's a huge reader because a lot of his shots emulate that. Yeah. So even there's a famous one where Requiem for a Dream, where he copied Ghost in a Shell. Yeah. You know, when she's in the bathtub.
And Perfect Blue, you mean?
Oh, is that what it was? Perfect Blue?
Yeah. He's actually been known, they say he copies a lot of that filmmakers stuff. It's not just Perfect Blue he copies. Like everything that animator makes, they say he kind of takes from. Yeah. Which is cool and sad at the same time.
If you keep going back to the same well, now that's where it starts verging on sad more.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan? Do you have an honorable mention?
So there's there's actually a few. Not necessarily that they're good because the movies, one of them I never even saw, one of them was bad. But here's a few that people are surprised about. Over the Hedge. I did not know Over the Hedge was based off of a graphic novel or comic book at all. You know, kids movie, didn't know, never saw it. R.I.P.D. is one where I'm like, that movie was not the best.
See, that one I never saw the comic, but I watched it and I'm like, they gave me comic vibes from watching it. So I'm not surprised.
And that one was written by the same person too. I mean, in the sense of like Peter Lenkov in his name. He wrote the comic book and wrote the movie.
Nice. Here's one that's more of an underground movie, but people that watch the movie also usually know it's based off a graphic novel is Ghost World. I don't know if you guys seen
I had that on my list also.
Did you? Thora Birch, Steve Buscemi, young Scarlett Johansson. Like, good movie. I saw the movie, never read the graphic novel, but the movie's solid. You know, it's good. Small town vibes.
I have just one on mine, and it was 30 Days of Night. Which is I think it was a mini series in like 2002. or something like that. Yeah, and I remember reading about that. This was one that was pitched as for a comic and a movie. They kind of pitched them both at the same time. Got rejected on both of them. Shut down. No go. Especially when they mentioned Josh Hartnett, they were like, "No, can't do it." But then IEW, the publishing company, they took a chance and they released it as a comic. They liked it, so they were like, "All right, let's pick it up as a film. Fine, we'll take Josh. That'll be our sacrifice."
Fine, if that's the only way we can get him made.
And so, but besides him, it's good vampire movie. It's very entertaining. You got very vicious vampires in it. You have it was, I haven't seen it in a while. Is Ben Foster that was in it?
Yeah, I think Ben Foster.
Ben Foster, and even
say,
in that little role that he was in, Scene Stealer,
he's
right
so
there.
good, man.
Yeah,
so
he's underrated, honestly.
Way underrated.
Fun fact: Steve Niles is the writer of that comic book, and he also wrote for a comic book that we published when I was at the Famous Monsters.
Oh, which one was that?
Yeah, it was Broken Moon.
Yeah. Why is it broken? Why is it
connections?
Humans, man, we mess up everything.
Yes, it is.
We had to get our cheese from somewhere. This episode was important to like show our listeners that comics, they expand well beyond just your basic like Marvel, DC, like superheroes. It's more than just Batman and Iron Man and Captain America and Superman. It's way beyond that. Just like regular books, comic books cover an array of contents, genres, themes. So there might be some movies that you've watched and you've really enjoyed, and they might have come from a comic book, graphic novel, or a manga. I'll keep it separate in there. So, maybe might give you a chance to dabble a little into the comic book world, and you might find something that you like.
So you're saying that Bill Maher was wrong, that comic books aren't for kids, adults can read them too?
One of the many things Bill Maher is wrong about.
Also check out and support local artists as well and local comic books. So, ones that aren't getting like the mainstream stuff like Marvel and DC, you'll find out that a lot of these more independent are going to allow their writers to be a little more courageous, be able to put out more of their vision without having to be so safe. So sometimes you can get that with graphic novels that you may not be able to see in adaptation. So check them out. Having said that, thanks for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. You can please like, subscribe, comment, share on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. I'm your host. You're just a tracer. Follow me at King_Sangre.
I'm not your host, Noisy Cricket. You can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on IG.
And I'm the other guy, J for Gendetta. You can follow me at Nicolopolis. Anywhere Nicolopolises are sold.
And they're sold a lot of places. With his pretentious self.
All right. I'm going to go start the script for 21 Men in Black.